Cool. Hello to the internet. This is the Ignite meeting. It's me and Sunny again. I'm from Weave. He's from Storage West, and we're going to talk about development stuff. So, Sunny, did you add anything? Did you have anything over the agenda?
Nothing much. I attempted to add input stream to exec command, but it didn't work, and I can tell you what could be happening and maybe a possible solution. We can discuss about it.
Cool. Okay. I'll just discuss Ignite exec input. I'll just say center in. Cool. Well, I'm going to try to keep the meeting pretty short since we both have other things that we will get to. But probably the most interesting thing I have to talk about is that I started working on end-to-end tests in CI. And Travis CI has support for KVM. As with setting up any new CI that you're unfamiliar with, this is a lot of like trying to figure out how the config file works and then like setting up GitHub permissions and then waiting for hours and hours and ends of like many builds. But I've arrived on this golden 30 lines of YAML, and it mostly works. So what's not functioning right now is I've hit a bug that I cannot reproduce locally. There may be something missing in the environment, or maybe it's a version of Containerd. It's not incredibly clear to me what's wrong, but Containerd, like the client is working in CI. So if you pop open the Travis pull here, then
can you share your screen?
Oh yeah, I thought I was sharing already. My bad. Thanks. Here we are. Okay, you can see now, hopefully.
I see it. Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, pull 570 is the basically it's pretty simple. There's a minimal build based off of Bionic, which is necessary for nested vert. I tried Xennial and it was not working. And then I found somebody's tip here in the Android Docker file, or I mean, an Android Circle CI build is like apparently do that. And then yeah, just install Go on minimal. I'm not using the language Go feature because it sets up a Go path, and that makes it hard to build with Go modules. Here's like our install docs modified with sudo. Use CPU checker to check KVM. Install CNI. And then I added this debug step here to just check to see what is available in Containerd. And then you just build Ignite and run make ETE. And so KVM okay. This is really cool, right? Because you can actually do KVM inside of CI. And then here's Containerd functioning. I was a little bit caught off guard here because in the setup here, there is a step that tests if Containerd is already on the path. And it doesn't install Containerd if it's already there, but it actually ended up installing it, which was surprising to me. Another thing that I noticed was that this version of Docker that is running is older because it doesn't support BuildKit. So maybe this version of Docker, I didn't check to see what version it is. I think it's in the build system information.
Docker has a BuildX project, right? That uses BuildKit.
Yeah, but I mean, here we see, oh, it's Docker 1806. Wow, from 2018, I guess, huh? Okay. Well, that would, I'm pretty sure this version of Docker is using Containerd underneath the hood. But maybe they don't have the socket in the same place, or not clear to me. And, yeah, so this is here, and then after the build succeeds, then running Mink E2E, you can see that some of the tests that you added are actually passing. So that's good news. That means that Ignite is functioning at a file system level. But then when we actually try to run a VM, there's this assertion failing that the VM doesn't run. The image import goes through, and then all of a sudden, in this function, it seems like the high level function here is in package operations verify pulled, which gets called from start VM. There is a ref parsing error.
I think I've seen this, the sandbox image. When the sandbox image is empty, I think when the tag is empty, you get this error.
Okay, that's helpful, because I had to perform a workaround to get the build working. The other thing I can do is just actually clone the Git repo, but I put in tags, so that, all right, that makes sense.
It would be nice if we
I did this.
Default.
It would be nice if what?
If you default the tag to dev, if you're on a branch, any other branch, you get dev instead of trying to get the hash.
Yeah, this is the source of the problem is there's a script called hack LD flags, and this tries to parse the Git tree to find the most recent tag that's applicable, and then it has two flags that are implemented: version only and image tag only. So here, this is just a sed replaced version that gets rid of the plus sign. And this is used for the image tag. And it wasn't exactly clear to me. So then I'm just gonna, let's just X with, does that work? Oh. Yes. Let's G. There we go. Oh, okay. It's still not clear to me. Oh, okay. I know what's wrong now, actually. That does make sense.
What's happening?
So yeah, this is like a leaky abstraction issue. So here in the make file, there's git version, which will automatically get calculated to this LD flags with the version only flag, and the same thing for image tag. And since these are make file variables, you can override them. But when the actual Ignite binaries are built, then we still run hack LD flags. And this is how the binaries get programmed to look for things like their Docker image. And hack LD flags does not respond to the override. So at a parent level in the make file, right, we're overriding this variable, but then it doesn't pass those variable overrides or doesn't modify the env of LD flags in any way. So even though I am using make to set these values, when the build is run,
it's empty.
Those values are empty in the binaries. So the actual images that we're producing are tagged correctly, but then the actual build doesn't reference the images that are tagged. That's kind of sinister. And where's the go command that gets run here? Yeah. So this would be, oh, no, that's not what's happening.
Why?
Because, so that variable is changed, and that's because if we read the LD flag script, I guess they might accept an override. Version vars, which I'm not seeing immediately how this override would actually function, but when I read the result of what actually happened in the build, there seems to be is one of these flags missing? Maybe. Sorry, I'm just trying to debug this. It's like,
you can go the other way. You can verify that this is there because of a missing tag.
Get version is missing, I think. So if we were to search for, yeah, that doesn't show up in this build. So there's no LD flag for get version like there should be. And I believe that that's probably the value that's actually used in the program. Oops, that's Sonobuoy. Yeah, so this would be and this was actually funny to me. So I've never looked at this code before, but I have noticed this behavior. But if you build in a dirty directory, then the resulting ignite binary will actually reference the dev image. It's only if your directory is clean that the resulting binary has a get version tag. So I think the solution here is for me to modify hack LD flags to actually respect the makefile variables. And then that'll take me one step further here. Hopefully, if I do that, all of the tests will pass. Also, if you remember, you and I have talked before about how Docker and CNI was not working. But I
Right.
actually found out that it is working.
On
But
your computer?
yes,
Oh,
but also not.
what do you mean? It works sometimes, but not all the times.
Yeah, so like here's an example of it functioning. Um, and here's curl with Docker CNI like functioning. So we'll add e to e regex, and getting this to fail has been tricky for me. So I assume that in a very fresh, clean environment that these would pass. So I'm gonna try to go forward with having the whole test suite passing. Um, and then I also forget, I think Go test is also passing, if I'm not mistaken. Which if that's true, then we would be at a point where we could enable all of the tests in CI.
That
Oh
would be
no.
cool. What?
I thought I fixed this problem.
Oh, did you? Did you fix it at any point?
I merged a patch that don't know what the source of this problem is entirely. I guess I could the downloaded version of Firecracker. So this is only happening locally, which means I just need to find the mod cache, which is under. Is that in Go package mod? Okay. Then this would be GitHub Firecracker. I'm just gonna delete this entirely. Guess I have to be root. And maybe that'll work. I'm pretty sure I've done that before, but I mean,
The last time I tried, there is another cache directory inside package mode, and that refills whatever you pull. And I tried deleting that cache as well, but again, it's populated with the same data, and the same error comes again.
oh, this
There's a
is probably like a symlink or something, huh? Yeah. Where is?
or mod directory has a cache directory inside.
Oh, okay, cool. So that's under mod cache.
But
Download.
even this is coming from somewhere else. I feel, because I've tried deleting and run it again. Immediately it gets populated.
Okay.
There's good time.
So this is not going to solve my problem, maybe. Hey, it's struggling to find it. That's encouraging.
Okay, hope it
Maybe.
works.
Me too.
My theory was that somewhere Go modules is caching in the network. They have some proxy, I guess, for Go modules, and it's cached some old version. Did it work?
No, I had this problem as well. Now it actually did download and extract, and there's no checksum mismatch, which is a good thing. But I'm not exactly sure what this other error comes from. I'm gonna try. I tried searching this up and I couldn't figure out what was wrong. I'm gonna remove my vendor directory and see if this works, maybe? No, I'm still having this issue. So this is saying that this local maybe I should, because this is the GoMod cache for inside the container. I don't know why it's complaining about this. Oh, it's because I'm trying to test it. I see. Okay. What directories would I want to test? Do we not have a good way of running all of the tests? I guess I would just test package and images and CMD.
If you do // it should not run the test under the vendor directory.
Yes, but
oh wait,
the bin directory is what's getting run. So that's the issue here. I guess if I were to just say, then that would just run the CMD tests, right? That looks like
bin directory. What's inside bin directory? Go code is there?
There is Go code in the bin directory because when Lucas built the build, there is a cache, and this cache gets mounted into the build Docker file, or into the build Docker containers. So it is a form of like isolating your GoMod cache, which is why when you run like make tidy versus make tidy in Docker, you can have different results. Because tidy in Docker has its own GoMod cache and its own version of Go.
This is similar to what Kubernetes main project has, right? They have a copy of the dependencies inside main directory.
Yeah, there's the Dockerized build that uses it. Then yeah. Which, I mean, considering that this was GoMod 112, it was pretty smart to actually have a separate mod cache, because the littlest change in a Go version with Go modules right now can cause different behavior. But
what did you delete to fix that issue? Just the cache directory?
Yeah, here. It was.
I have to try.
Yeah, it was this GoMod cache download, GitHub Firecracker, since that was the only problematic one that I had.
But the error was coming from SDK, right? Firecracker SDK repository?
Yes, yeah, which is a subdirectory of the Firecracker org.
Oh, right.
Deleted everything in the Firecracker org. And then the same thing for after I deleted that, I also deleted the copy of it that's not in the cache. So I learned something new. That's hopefully helps me understand GoMod a little bit better. Cool. Yeah, so I'm pretty positive that I have a way to move forward on this Git version thing, so I'm going to do that after this call. Hopefully that gets the end-to-end tests working. That would be really cool. It doesn't take very long, like considering that it has to do a fresh build. So this was only running for 2 minutes and 38 seconds to get to all of these failed tests. And then the actual end-to-end tests currently, there aren't very many. So this one ran in 14 seconds. That's just the image pull. And then the subsequent ones run in like a second. Those are failures. So the success cases are only like 4 times longer or something like that. I'm pretty
2 minutes is
this.
really good.
2 minutes, yeah, 2 minutes to get to,
very good.
to a build that can run the tests seems pretty quick in hindsight. There's a few things that can be improved. The major one is that Travis doesn't cache Docker images, and although they say that it's like not useful to cache those things, pulling the Golang 1.12.17 builder is actually, it takes like 20 seconds or something like that.
I remember it's huge.
Yeah, it's quite large. And then that's actually the second copy of Go that we have, because we actually, it takes 4.5 seconds to install this version of Go. But those are just little build optimizations. It's not really necessary to fix that at all. So there's the local Go that's necessary to actually run the end-to-end tests, because our end-to-end tests right now aren't working in Docker. And then because of some of the issues that you were working on, right, with the like polling for device and that kind of stuff. When you got it working in the container, then that would be possible to run end-to-end tests inside of a container instead. But yeah, so we have the local version of Go, and then our Makefile is hard-coded to run inside of this Go shell. So that's another thing I might fix. I might add a host build version of just like pass a variable to the Makefile that disables the Docker shell for the Go build. And then, yeah. So got into the CI stuff a little bit. And then I'm pretty sure that I can do something in Circle CI to get the like dependencies thing to only run on either branches that are part of the release process, or maybe branches that have like some keyword in the name or in the commit message that says to like update deps.
That would be really helpful.
Yeah, so when you make a pull request, it'll only run the dependency matching portion for if like the commit that you're doing is actually trying to do that or something, and then always run it on master or whatever. So cool. Okay. And then you wanted to, so I want to review the config proposal this week. And then Daniel made a make docs PR. It looks really pretty. Have you seen that? It's worth looking at.
I saw an example of some other project site. It was looking really good.
Yeah. He posted
A demo link.
Yeah. I like this little gradient that he put in here. It makes it look very fresh. Not like Web 2.0. Yeah, but it's pretty cool. Like, this looks good. It's the installation guide, and it'll still have the versioning features and all that. So
it has material design.
Yeah, so it's very modern. I haven't actually looked at what this really looks like without dark mode on, but I mean, seems nice. Oh yeah, and then look at that. That's fancy. So this H1 here moves to the title bar when you scroll down. That's satisfying.
All right, I see.
Yeah. Anyway, I'm gonna probably work with Daniel to get that merged, but that's pretty cool. So you wanted to chat about.
Did you try the CP?
Sorry?
CP copy command? Copy?
No, I
Copy
didn't.
command.
I tried it before you pushed the changes and before the directory stuff, but I haven't looked at it since then. So we got to get a review for that going. I will do that. I'm starting to feel a lot less uneasy. I think we really have done quite a bit of improvements that justify a pretty significant release. So, yeah, you wanted to talk about the problems that you're experiencing implementing the standard in, right?
So, Docker doesn't use SSH to.
Oh, you might be cutting out.
Not exactly SSH, right?
Sorry.
Oops.
Yeah, I can hear you now.
I think my connect. It should be mine. Anyway,
okay.
It's fine, right?
Yeah.
So in our case, we are using SSH to connect to a VM. In case of Docker, they are using something else. It's not exactly SSH, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because of that, because of the nature of SSH, I guess when you start reading anything from standard input in that SSH session, that reading never stops. It's like a terminal session. It continues to stay, and it expects you to type more commands until you terminate the session completely. So because of this, I can give you an example of a command. If you just run that command, you would see what's happening with the latest version of Ignite.
Okay. Let's create a VM. So, run scat. So this should be I think this is a build from my branch, which is like very recent. So you're saying that I have this VM, and if I were to exec,
I'll send you a command that you can try. I'm pasting in the document.
Okay.
Can you copy this and run there?
So I'm actually experiencing an issue even just getting into the VM right now.
Cool.
Okay.
So, and cancel this, Control C, and then you go inside a VM and check. You would see that the file exists. So it did read and write to the file inside, but the reading part from standard input is not terminating. And content of this is there.
I'm sorry, what was the last part that you said?
So it's able to read and write inside the VM. But the problem is it cannot terminate that session. Once it starts reading from standard input, it needs to wait for more input.
And exec is implemented with SSH?
No, I don't think exec is using, Docker exec is not using SSH. It's using something else.
No, yeah, but ignite exec is.
It's using SSH, right?
What if we did Ignite's SSH implementation? Brilliant.
What should that do? Oh, that will go inside and run the echo command. No, that should not be able to do anything.
We don't have a command override like the actual SSH command does. So it seems like this is hard coded to run bash interactively. And if we were to do, and there's no other real flags here to customize that. But if we were to do something like, haha, so that's,
What's different? Oh, okay. The tactic.
This is not exactly the same. It's taking standard input and it's piping it to bash through the SSH command.
Double echo, okay.
Yeah. So I can then, do something like this. And then if I were to cat test file, then we can see that it's, and we can run the ls command and it's there. So there's something about the exec implementation that is not handling standard input well, because there's not something fundamental with SSH that would prevent the receiving side from terminating on standard input.
No, in this case, you're not doing the same thing, right? You are passing a string and running that in VM directly.
No, but what's happening is that standard input is actually being successfully passed and terminated to the bash process that's started by SSH. My suspicion here is that if I change this to exec and whatever our flags here, I see. So exec is probably...
SSH is using the system SSH binary and exec is using goes SSH.
Okay. So there's something different in the way that standard in is handled.
I still feel whatever you're passing from the first part to the SSH command, it's being passed and then it's using whatever it has in the SSH command. But in the exec command, it's different. You're piping remotes standard input to host standard input. I feel they are different.
So this is interesting. Normally when you would use a pipe, you would not get an interactive terminal. So here I'm doing the exact same thing as I was with SSH, right? I'm doing the double echo and then I'm piping it to bash. And the behavior is different. Because I don't have control of this session anymore. I could probably do, no, that doesn't work. Because the standard in
That's the same behavior.
So right here, this is not actually standard in. Normally, like, I should be getting bash errors, right? So what's happening here is there's actually a TTY. So I've been given a pseudo terminal, and that pseudo terminal's standard out is not hooked up to the process's standard in. So this bash process effectively has orphaned input because it's already done receiving its input, but the TTY is still open. So I would think actually that because exec is being opened with IT, this is probably similar to, say, if I were to run, I think I could just do this. Let's just get BusyBox and that's not what I'm trying to do. Oh, oops. Here we go. So here's a shell, and then if I were to echo,
you should add an RM as well.
Thanks. There we go. Right. So there's a difference here when I add the TTY. Right. It doesn't like the fact that, but then this is not the same. Right. So I need to add this. What specifically does this flag mean? I just know that they're different. So there's interactive, which is keep standard in open even if not attached. And then there is the TTY flag, allocate a pseudo TTY. And it's not incredibly clear to me what these do. I wish I knew the terminology better. But I'm pretty sure that this is the functional difference, right? So with interactive and TTY enabled, it does not like piping things to another command. If you only have interactive enabled, it holds standard in open, and then the host process can close it. And then if you don't have interactive, then it's not going to do anything. And if you have only a TTY, then you get really weird behavior where the TTY is hooked up, but you can't actually do anything. And this is actually like one of the most miserable experiences for Docker. So. We'll just kill Sleepy Tharp was my container there. So there you go. I'm not sure if that's enlightening at all, but I have a feeling that the way that input is has something to do with that.
If you open the file exec.go, like you'll see that there's nothing else you can do. Like it's properly connecting the inputs, but you need a way to terminate the session. It's under run exec.go. Yep. Run SSH command function. Yep. I tried various ways to make it work. Like I wrote some code that would read the standard field separately and then pass to the run command. But even then, as soon as I pass anything into the STD in of remote, it just hangs. It won't. It will just wait for more input. It will not terminate. I try to avoid this copy. I wrote something else that will read from host input and pass it to VM's input.
The standard in is a copy here, and it is not closed. For instance,
how would you close it?
you could do this, right? Like this is totally valid. There's nothing, like I can keep copying stuff to this standard in. It's still open.
I tried that as well. But when do I close it? My command, I never get a return after I run the below run command.
The IO copy here is blocking. Oh wait, no, here's a go.
It's
routine.
not.
So you would need to synchronize. You would need to synchronize on the go routine in order to do that. You could use any of the sync primitives or a channel or something. You could also just put this into a func, go func, and then block on the copy. So instead of running the go routine directly, you could do.
No, the problem that I was seeing was it will never return from the run. Below there is a run command, right? It never returns from there. Because of that, you can never terminate this whole thing.
So this copy just stays open?
It will stay open because
this go routine never completes.
It never completes. That's one reason.
Okay.
And you cannot terminate it. How do you know that it has completed copying?
There is probably a channel on the pipe. That's a good question. There's definitely something that you can use. But what is that? That's a good question. If you still have time, I'm willing to look into it. But, yeah.
Last night I spent many hours and could not find anything. If you can help, that would be great.
I mean, the Unixy thing is when there's like end of file, right?
I was thinking about that. How do I tell it to stop reading? How do I pass an end of file?
Okay. This is some interesting information about using a terminal. Apparently there's a Google library for doing that. We could probably learn something from reading about the underlying implementation. And then there's also I don't see why you would need to do an IO copy exactly. What was your issue with just doing
Read from standard in. Is it?
where is this used? Sorry, I'm just trying to.
Exec command. Just exec command.
Standard in comes from the session. The SSH session is here in new session. And then we have a defer session close. New session comes from the SSH client, which comes from this dials. Okay. And then there's an SSH config here. Client config. And that config user auth host key callback. But what does the actual struct look like? Client config. Host key algorithm. So this is all protocol stuff. There's nothing. Okay, so that's not related.
I was hoping there would be some option that you can toggle and it'll just work.
Mm-hmm.
Could not find anything.
It makes me think. So that was the Go standard lib, right? SSH standard in. Let's read somebody else's example. This person. Here's a Go Playground example. Here's the Go doc. Here's somebody talking about this exact issue. So here, they're creating a session, and then they're trying to write to standard in, and then they want
I was reading this as well. I couldn't understand how to use this.
standard in without running a command. Since there's no remote command, there's no consumer for standard in hanging forever. Instead, you should do something similar to the output method. Here, what they're doing is they're creating a buffer. They're running the command.
I couldn't understand what he was trying to tell here. That's a link to GoDoc, I guess.
Output runs command on the remote host and returns its standard output. Okay, yeah. And this what? Sorry.
Do you understand what they're trying to explain here?
Not completely.
This thing, I tried this one. So I was reading STD standard input separately and passing it to the remote input. That it was the same behavior, no change. And that made me believe that if you just pass anything in standard input of SSH session, it will continue expecting more. It won't terminate. Somehow you need to terminate it. But how do you know when do you terminate it? Or how do you terminate it?
I would assume that the IO copy go routine would exit. This person doesn't seem to be attempting the same thing here. And then here we have similar control flow. Yeah, I'm a little perplexed as to why the copy is still open. Let's think about this for a second. So if I have an exec, there's a TTY is the only thing that I'm there are flags to tell Bash to do something else. There.
Like, is there option in SSH to not use TTY?
If the Bash, the shell is interactive. The I option is the TTY. An interactive shell is started without non-option arguments unless S is specified, and without the C option. So here is SSH terminal mode, request PTY.
I tried removing this. Didn't change anything.
What if I do this? Oh, what happened? Open ghost vendor. Okay. And then I do the same exec command. Okay, that got rid of the TTY. And then that can make it interactive, but it doesn't like.
Still wait.
So because recalling from the Docker example, when I have a TTY, the behavior is not good. So I don't want that. I just want interactive, which means hold standard in open, pass this to the process, allow the process to operate without a TTY. Right? That's how we get this. Similarly, I could just go for something simpler, right? And then in the Ignite exec example, The simpler rendition of this would be just using cat, right? So ideally that should end. And
I was just thinking, like, what's the general use case of SSH? Do you ever use SSH without terminal?
Yes.
When?
Say
How?
you want to cat a tarball over and then unzip it on the remote.
Okay. How do you do that? Is there a flag?
Cat the tarball, pipe it to SSH, and then untar it.
No, not in that way. It's like, can you start SSH in an interactive?
It just automatically detects if there's a pipe. Like, for instance, the ignite SSH command is a good example. The only thing is it doesn't have an override for the command. And that totally is a thing that should be added. But basically, if I construct the SSH command that ignite runs, which I think I can just do by checking PS. So if I do this, and then I look for an SSH command.
Did you notice something? You have your hostname as localhost today in the VM. It used to be the VM ID, right?
Yeah, that's not
I
good.
have this issue on my computer, but wherever else I see it's ID, and my computer it's hostname.
Yeah, I think I ran into this issue as well. Is still working, and there are 2 entries for localhost. So the VM ID is also here. Oh, did I? And then I think that's in. But then if I were to, yeah, I see. Okay. Does that work? Oh, it does work. A million ways to resolve a name. Some respect Etsy hosts and some do not. And yeah. So that it looks like this is the SSH command. So here's the raw version of what Ignite is doing. And oh.
Why is it asking for a password?
So let's get rid of the log level option. Known hosts file is fine. Host key checking. Oh, I didn't know we were doing that. Connect timeout. Whatever. Here's the identity file. Yep. Can I read the identity file? Maybe I have to sudo.
That could be the reason, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, cool. That's probably why. Okay. And then just to get rid of the pseudo problem, just so we're working with just SSH. So here's that. And here you see I'm getting an interactive shell. If I add bash to the end, it's the same thing. Should be. Oh, no. That's because you can, yeah, so you can pass this TTY flag to SSH. 1T will work. And then sometimes if you're like passing things into it, 2Ts will need to be passed. But that makes that behavior happen. And then here we can see the behavior starting to fall apart, right? So that's what happens with Docker, right? When you have a TTY explicitly. And then if you have 1T, then and SSH does things for you. So I guess here what it's saying is that a pseudo terminal will not be allocated because standard in is not a terminal. So 1T is, hey, give me a terminal if you want. And then 2Ts is, no, give me a terminal. I don't care what you think. And if you have no T's, then it automatically detects or no, there's just no terminal at all. So, oh, and that's why that log level flag was being passed. Sure. That'll get rid of the known hosts thing. So doing this kind of stuff with SSH is pretty typical, like piping things over the network. You can also do things like open netcat on the remote side in order to send things through a port on the machine through localhost, through SSH. So you can use SSH as kind of a network tunnel to get bytes into a buffer on the host, and then like use the host network with those bytes. Or what's another use case? Piping a script, yeah, into bash. What other things? Network testing. Although normally you would open up a different port on the remote, but you can do some bandwidth stuff with SSH like this. And, so yeah, I think your suspicion that standard in is not operating properly in the way that we're using it with copy has something to do with it. I almost am tempted to be like, to put a print here just to see if the copy finishes.
That's how I do things.
Yeah.
Adding prints above and below to check if it's working.
Yeah, because we got rid of the terminal, right? So now it's just a matter of making sure that that ends. Expression in Go must be a function call because I have to invoke my.
Oh, right.
There we go. My keyboard is like blazing hot because of all the builds I've been doing. My machine is quite warm. 97 degrees Celsius. Wow, it's quite hot. Why is it so hot? Then we wanted to test the exec commands that we're doing. So yeah, that copy operation is already finished. So I would imagine that. Huh?
Oh, message is still reading. It's waiting for more input. It's not talking.
I would imagine then that we can just do this.
That should work.
So after the copy operation, just close the standard in.
I thought of this once, but I didn't try. Got busy with other things. I hope this works. Then I don't see any other way to do this. Other option was whatever you're sending it as input, copy it inside the VM and use that as it. It worked.
Yeah, it did. So that's basically, yeah. And then I would imagine that if I add this TTY in here, because right now, if I do, like, say with bash, and then I were to, yeah, oh, yeah. So this is well behaved. But then if I were to add the TTY, and we got rid of our prints. I wonder if this Go build is significantly slower or faster. Than if I were to, so that took 21 seconds. What if I just run this on my host? Because I'm using the same version of Go right now. It seems to be the same. Yeah, it's not significantly different. Cool. Yeah, so then there's the TTY being held open. But if it's cat, then cat doesn't care. Oh yeah, it does.
We don't need that TTY for exec, right? Is there any case where we need it?
Yeah, I mean, it's a, you could say that SSH is the interactive version, right? And that exec is the non-interactive version, I guess. But really, both of them should have options for enabling or disabling the TTY. You can check if standard in has a TTY, right? And then try to assume based off of what the input is, whether or not the child process that you're starting should or should not have one. But it's not always the case, right? So an example would be if I am running another common usage of SSH is like injecting passwords into interactive scripts. So you can like wrap SSH inside of what is the program? Expect. Expect is a library in UX over the TCL programming language that allows you to like basically based off of what is input, or based off of what is output to the screen, like to input things, right? So you can be like, oh, okay, like it's asking for a username, type in the username. It's asking for a password, type in the password. But like program it in expect. And if you're using expect, then you would like want the TTY. And, right. So, but then you'd want to pass your TCL program like through standard in or something, and then it would break unless you had the option to control it. So, really, the exec should be non-interactive by default, but it should support this, right? And then our SSH implementation, it needs to have command support. Honestly, they're the same. They're the same exact thing. Like both SSH and exec are the same command. They're just implemented with either the GNU tool or with Go's implementation, because it's the same transport. But
can you try one more thing? The command I gave you, can you try running that and see if it's working? It should work, but just to be sure.
yeah, that was foo, right? And then oh, but that was my SSH modification here. So this,
you built
this
it
is
with TTY.
with the TTY, yeah. And then if I take it off,
Hope it works. I spent like so many hours yesterday, couldn't understand what was happening, why, and
yeah,
how do I close this thing?
yeah. I think you just calling standard in close was the only thing, because just because you're done copying this standard in to this standard in doesn't mean that you can't copy other things, right? Like you could copy our process standard out or a file or anything you want. You could keep going. So it makes sense that you'd have to close it. And,
Instead of copying, I was just doing session dot standard in equals host standard in. Even in that case, it was not working.
Yeah. So
wait, that should work, right? Should not.
Sorry?
If I do session dot std in equals os dot std in, there's no copy happening in that case. Why doesn't that work?
Does it not?
It didn't when I tried yesterday.
Let's see. Oh no, it's because session already has a standard in setup.
I removed this std in pipe.
It wants a writer and it has a channel to close. So it just checks to see if the session has standard in already. I suppose if you were not running a command, then yeah, you could do, and it's public, so you can just override it yourself. So you tried, instead of doing this copy,
session dot std in equals, or was it std? Oh, standard in. Yes. Session. What's S? What's S?
Oh, my bad. I don't know what S is. It seemed to be a valid symbol.
It was actually invalid.
It built it. I don't know what S was, but now I'm curious. What is S? How did that even build? That's I'm just gonna ignore it.
On my computer, it shows undeclared.
Yeah, I think that's like GoPLS just like not updating or something. So
So you think this would work? This should work.
I don't see why not. Yeah, it seems to work. I think the reason that you were seeing it not work is because of the TTY.
Possible.
But yeah, so let's make a new file, right? Foo is back. And we'll just ls. There you go. By the way, you don't need to do this CP dev standard in.
No, that was just a use case from Kind. Kind uses this way of input. So I was just using that use case for this.
Yeah, you can just use T is all I was saying. T will read from,
T.
and it'll actually output it to your standard out as well. So that is, well, yeah, I can see why Kind would do this instead. That, yeah, I can, if you don't want the output to show. Oh. So
Why didn't I disable yesterday? Yeah.
This doesn't show the output, but then this does. Well, it's you know, I mean, you hit a layer of abstraction that you never played with before. And yeah, I mean, for me, I've lost many hours already on having a TTY. So that's why I know to look for it, is because I've gone through the same pain that you have, which is like, why is my thing not working? What the heck is interactive? And I still don't understand it to the level where I need where I'd be like very proficient in working with pseudo terminals and all that. And there are like OS dependencies and device dependencies that are exposed by the kernel that allow all of this stuff to happen. Like we really do take it for granted. It's just an abstraction layer that you never have to work with. But when you're using a computer, like the idea of an interactive shell, and then to be able to use that same interpreter to run programs, like that's a pretty complex mechanism. And there's system calls and signal handling that actually, like, the existence of a terminal changes the way that those things will behave. They're like SIGWinch is an example. That's an example of a system call that's terminal dependent, if I remember correctly. And yeah, pretty interesting. Like just this, like if I were to cat like a big file, like the changelog. So the fact that I can do this and my terminal is like resizing the buffer is based off of system calls and its integration with the terminal. So
there's so many things happening.
Yeah, but you never even think about it, right? And you might have noticed I'm using a special version of Cat, but yeah. If you never used BAT before, it's a Rust program that does coloring and syntax highlighting and paging and all that. So.
I've heard that people are rewriting all the usual commands in Rust and reusing them.
Yeah, that is just nice, like from a UX standpoint. You can see like it has language support and has themes. and you can change the formatting. It even has like headers if you're printing multiple files, but I turned it off. There's like a config file. Can't exactly remember where I enabled it or disabled it, but yeah. Yeah, there's a Go version of sudo, right? Gosu.
I don't remember.
Yeah, it's Gosu is used in some of the, especially in the Docker project, like for I think Tianon Gravi is the like main package maintainer, and a lot of his Docker files will use Gosu instead of like sudo from the GNU project. And it's just a replacement that doesn't require C. And, yeah, neat stuff. I guess feel free to do
Will you
whatever.
submit the patch for this, or should I?
No, feel free to do it. Yeah, I think
Okay.
that would be good.
Okay.
I would probably add a flag for TTY. And I'm actually
I'll
fine
make it.
if it's disabled by default, which is technically a breaking change, but that's fine.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, I think that there's already. Yeah, it's unfortunate. There's already a T flag for timeout. I would probably get rid of the short flag here and then replace it with T and TTY, since that's more like the standard.
We can do this thing for, what was the other command? Copy or something, right? We added a new flag because there was some existing flag. Do you remember?
It was the force versus format, I think, or something.
Oh, right, huh? Format and filter, I think.
Filter, right? Yeah.
Filter and format.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's, you can decide what to break and what not to. But I think that -T for TTY is probably much more generally useful than -T for timeout. I don't think that this is actually like that clear or useful, especially since the Docker UX exec-T is a thing. So yeah, I would probably get rid of the short flag for timeout and then use it for TTY. And then, yeah, effectively, this will be a superior implementation of Ignite SSH at that point.
When was it? A few weeks back, I told you that I'll re-implement normal SSH command into using Go SSH, right? I still have to do it.
I would be fine, honestly, if Ignite SSH was even just an alias for the same exec, right? Like with different defaults. Basically, it default to not passing a command. Because when you don't pass a command to SSH, then it just uses the shell on the host. And then, whereas with exec, we require a command to be present. Because there's not a lot of functional difference when you like, oh, well, there's no TTY. So if I were to do, because we disabled the TTY, right? Yeah, so you can still do this. But you've probably experienced this in a container before, right?
In Docker, you have
Yeah.
a lot of this.
Yeah, so this is, yeah, just bash without a TTY, but still interactive. So, or no, it's not interactive. It's just taking in the script from standard in and then interpreting it as each line flushes. Yeah. But, cool.
Is copying better or just making sessions standard in equal?
I don't see a
any
need for
program?
copy. Yeah, I would just set it to the OS standard in. Basically, it's just rescinding control, and you don't need any control at that point. I would even say you could probably even do it for standard out and standard error.
I've seen the cases where people just equal all of them.
Yeah, I don't really see a reason to use copy for any of these. I don't know. Let's try it. If I were to just oh. And then I'm guessing that they're not capitalized. Like this. Let's change the order here a little bit. Standard in, standard out, standard error. And then I would also be curious if the pseudo terminal works. So here we have this. Seems to be functioning. Standard out and standard in were working there. Similarly, if I do this and I T to a new file, then you can see standard out is working. And then if I were to, there's new file, and then I can cat new file. Yep. And then standard error is probably working the same as standard out. Have no reason to expect why those would be working differently. And then if I enable the terminal, then I do a make.
Those, it's such a small function.
Yeah, to have to rebuild. Yeah. Then cool. And then if I do an exec, this cat is still working interactively, and then I can also start an interactive bash, and I have, seems to be working the same. Is it? Is there extra output?
Wait. With TTY, it's working.
Yeah,
Did you rebuild?
Yeah, I rebuilt.
What happened in my case?
Well, it's not the TTY is working as I would expect it, is what I'm getting. But it doesn't obviously work to do this, right? Like this is not this is going to have very undesirable behavior, but it seems to be functioning the same way. Is all I was getting at. And, but yeah, like I can use the interactive terminal. Seems like the same. The only thing I'm noticing here is maybe Should have commented out that code instead. Maybe if the copy, this looks right, yeah. I'm just noticing there's extra lines here. That's a little interesting to me. Why are there extra lines? Oh yeah, it happens all the time, I guess. So yeah, there's no functional difference. Basically, the copy is just doing unnecessary memory.
I don't know why it didn't work yesterday. You have to give it on. You have standard in directly equal. Why didn't it work for me yesterday? Doesn't matter, it's fine. I'll try again.
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty sure it was just the fact that when you tried doing this, then I'm guessing you did not disable the TTY. Like, I'm guessing you tried this, but then you tried piping the input and you didn't try to disable the TTY when it was like this.
Awesome.
And that's my only guess there. So
anyway, this is like not a new problem. When I was doing kind ignite thing, I came across this issue. So it's like 2 months old issue that I was aware of it, could not figure out how to fix this. And now we have a solution. So I'm
cool. Well,
pretty happy.
That's why we pair program. My like first like 2 years of like professional work, I basically did like 80% of the time pair programming. And my boss would always kind of check in on me, and he's like, so like, is the pair programming working? Do you still think it's effective? Like, it's not better to have 2 people working separately? And we were always adamant about it. Like, there's no way that we would save all the time if we didn't have 2 similarly spec heads on the same problem. And it was like never a question for us. But then I've worked at other places where like people don't believe in it, and it's shocking to me. I think you can solve stuff much faster with multiple people on the same problem, like more than 2 times faster. Like sometimes one person just never solves something, you know, because like you reach the end of your thinking or the end of your experience or whatever. It always helps to like have diverse minds on it. Well, we are way over on this, and thanks so much for your time. Did you have anything else that you wanted to bring up?
I
saw you.
I just wanted to tell that there are some issues in using Docker runtime. We have been using it on our CI because VM stop works with Docker, stop and start. There are some issues with when you're using continuity. The problem was when you delete the VMs. I've noticed that. So what was I doing? So I was doing stop the VM and then delete the VM. And in that case, there is a even if I'm using Docker runtime, there's a containerd process left behind that's never cleaned, inside which Firecracker is running.
Okay.
Containerd task is running. And if I stop that task, everything gets cleaned up.
So when using runtime Docker,
and you stop the container and then delete the container or the VM.
And are you doing stop runtime Docker?
I am. The flags are passed properly.
So stop runtime Docker, and then
RM.
RM runtime.
The
Is this
VM.
VM stop and VM RM, or is it just the top level ones?
Top level ones.
Uh-huh.
So you see the VM files get deleted from the Firecracker directory. So if you do ignite PS, you won't see them. But in the background, the sandbox is still running. Even the Docker container that is created with the VM gets deleted, but there's a container running with a task.
That is weird to me. And it's in the Firecracker namespace.
I could not understand why. If you're using Docker, it should be in Moby namespace, right?
Very interesting.
I didn't get to investigate why it's happening, but we have a Jenkins server, just one machine for running all this Ignite CIs. Because of this, the whole machine will get stuck after like 3 or 4 this is then happening. Cool. 3-4 times.
Well, what that tells me is that in either run, stop, or RM, something is starting a containerd task when it shouldn't be.
And the temporary workaround is do not stop, delete with force, then it cleans up properly.
Okay, so if you do a RM
with -f, yeah.
Force, okay.
Then it works.
Is a known workaround. So maybe it's stop.
Possible.
Possibly it's stop. Yes. Okay. Cool. We'll need to open a bug report on that. I'll see if I can reproduce it.
I was thinking of reproducing and trying to fix this bug, but didn't get time.
Yeah, I mean, because I know that you're focused on other things. So just thanks for reporting. And if you get to it, then just ping in the Ignite channel. And, is that a good communication method for you, the Ignite Slack channel? Or do you not?
Is there any other way?
I'm just wondering if it works for you or not. Some people don't use Slack, so I don't know.
It's fine, yeah.
Okay, cool.
Is there any other way?
You can send me an email.
Oh, no. That's fine.
Yeah, because sometimes like Slack messages get lost. Like I won't see something from anyone unless they ping me or whatever. But, yeah. And then, cool.
One more thing. I have been importing Ignite's packages into some Go project that I made for internal use in RCI.
Oh, cool.
Is that a no or yes? It's fine.
I would say, yeah, use it however you want. Like a project like Kubernetes, like takes a really strong stance on it because they have like such a massive user space. Then they don't want to be pretending like changing Kubernetes isn't going to break your code. But then a good example of like somebody who breaks that rule is like Rancher needs to import like lots of that code in order to make their product work. So every release, sometimes there's breaking changes and they have to deal with it. But the project is massive, and the dependencies are hell. But in something like Ignite, I mean, we're having fun. We're creating new stuff, and things should be driven by usage. So however you want to use it, you're the person who shows up here on the calls the most. And you've contributed a significant amount of code. Like this project is just as much yours as it is anybody else's. Yeah, and I would be happy as well to chat like in the future if you wanted to like do a maintenance or review role or anything like beyond just basic contributions. As you take care of Ignite really well, so really appreciate working with you.
And I'm learning a lot from you.
Yeah, me too.
In these meetings.
I learn a lot from the project, and yeah, I think the most important thing is just that, like, to me, is that you get value out of the project and that you're having fun and it's actually satisfying. So as long as, and then, yeah, if you want to take on any more responsibility, or if you're like struggling in any particular area, or as we have other people jump on that want to contribute, you know, just that software is only valuable because of the people that use it, you know. So, yeah, so the value comes from you, so thanks.
Okay.
Cool. Thanks for the extended
yeah.
meeting edition. I know we said we were going to keep it short, and instead we went so it was fun programming. I'll see you later, Sunny.
Yeah, bye.
Yeah.